Okay, then. Okay, once again, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Estrad. Today, Terrence Brown from KTH will talk about the death of business models. I'm so curious about that. Welcome. But first, I want to say a few words about ESBRI, the organization that arranged these lectures. My name is Helen Torgimsson, and I'm a project manager at ESBRI. We have disseminated research results for 20 years through these Estrad lectures, the magazine Entré, and web TV. We have also done a lot of other activities, so please visit our website for more information. Today's lecture will start now. After about 45 minutes, we will have a fika break. Coffee, tea, and some nice cakes will be served outside in the bar. And after the break, it's about 30 minutes more presentation, and then we finish with questions. And we are totally finished at 5. I would like to thank our main partners, Tillväxtverket and Vinnova. Thanks to their support, we can arrange Estrad free of cost for you. That was all for me. Welcome again.
Is this on? It is. Okay. Again, I apologize, even though it was nothing I did. Start late. This is a little awkward with the slides over here, so you just bear with me a little bit. I would also like to thank ESBRI and Magnus. 20-year anniversary. I've known Magnus for those 20 years, and so thanks for having me. This is the second time that I've done an Estrad. I did one about 16 years ago, so you guys are in for a treat. Given that one must have been so bad that it took them 16 years to invite me back. As we go through some of these slides, I might excite you. I might excite myself. I might anger you. Okay. I might confuse you. Okay. You probably will end up with a headache of some sort, but that's okay. That means that you're thinking. Hopefully you don't get too angry, because some people feel deeply about some of these issues. So let's get going. So who am I? So again, my name is Terrence Brown. As you may hear, I'm not originally from Saltsjöbaden, although I've been in Sweden for 20 years. I started in Jönköping when the university started there. My expertise is entrepreneurship and strategy. I also have a degree in political science and in economics as well, and international business. I've had some success in research and entrepreneurship, won some research awards, that sort of thing. I was the dean of the Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship, an organization you may have heard of. I'm at KTH and have been since 1999 primarily. I'm the head of the industrial marketing and entrepreneurship division there. Also, I am the founding editor of an international peer-reviewed journal called the International Journal of Entrepreneurial Venturing. So that's kind of the academic sort of things. Also been very involved actively in helping entrepreneurs create value and wealth. I've been a member of the Swedish Venture Capital and Private Equity Association for a while, as well as the Danish Venture Capital and Private Equity Association for a while. My students have created businesses in excess of their market value, excess of a couple $1 billion, not kroner. So given all that, it would seem to be I would know what I'm talking about. This is the kind of the audience participation where you go, yes. Yes, it does seem that way. So in conclusion, I always like to end early. You mentioned some cakes. So, yeah. No, I always like to start with the conclusion because oftentimes people have to leave, have to dash out. And I want to give them a little bit of what they're going to miss up front. And then you can try to figure out what I mean throughout the presentation. Hate, love. Okay. With that said, let's go on. So again, I have this, there's this duality thing happening. There's this, this entrepreneur in me, this practical side, as well as the research side. So we're kind of these two hats, and that's good. I mean, this audience is full of entrepreneurs as well as academics, as well as some policymakers. And so I'm going to be jumping back and forth between practice and policy. Hopefully, when things start to get a little boring with the research, I'll jump back to practice, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so this is interesting. Now, these are trademarks that have become generic. So these are intellectual property owned by companies, okay? But the words themselves have kind of become nouns or verbs, meaning a category of products. I mean, some of these are very, well, Band-Aid, okay, you probably know that one. Did you know that bubble wrap is a trademark? Let's say Jeep, jacuzzi, hula hoop, frisbee. This is one that I learned that was actually relatively new. Let's see here. I can't use this. Memory stick. Memory stick is a trademark. It's not a generic term. Ping pong. Okay? Ping pong. Really big here. Ping pong is a popsicle. Okay? The one that surprised me the most in doing this little bit of research was the fourth one in the second column. Superhero is owned jointly by Marvel and DC Comics. Superhero is a trademark. And then when we get down here to the second half of the column, aspirin, cellophane, dry ice, escalator, what are those? Heroin. And the last one, videotape. Those were trademarks owned by companies who lost them because they didn't vigorously enough defend them. So they moved into the public domain. And so the question is, why do I have these things up here? My thought is the business model canvas going to be next? When we say business model, do we mean the business model canvas? Or when we say the business model canvas, do we mean the business model? And I fear that we're kind of moving in this direction. Okay, so innovation. We're all interested in innovation because that's what the people on the news tell us we should be interested in. Innovation. Okay, so here are 4 categories of innovation. Technological innovation, kind of stuff that people in the next building across from me at KTH are doing. Really kind of cool, high-tech stuff with beton, cement, and other things like that. But anyway, technical innovations. The next, product or service innovations. These are the things that when we see new gadgets, okay, new gadgets. And these days, a lot of us see these new gadgets on our news feed on Facebook, some sort of new gadget that someone has come up with. The next kind of innovation is this process innovation, okay? And it's not technical per se, and it's not a product or service innovation. It's how the organization does things. Okay? Can we improve the way that our processes are that give us some sort of competitive advantage? And the fourth one here is business model innovation, which is in part at the root of what we're talking about today. Now, this was a study done by IBM, and the exact scale and numbers aren't very important, but what is important is the magnitude differences. You have product and service innovation on the left, you have operations or process innovation in the middle, and you have the business innovation that's going to produce this, whatever it is, 6, 7 times as much positive compound annual return as the other two. So there's something in this business model innovation. These companies here, I know you're familiar with virtually all of them. Okay? Mega global companies, huge market caps. They got where they were, okay? Not because they were selling new technology, not because they were selling a new gadget, not because of the process was better, made them more efficient, but primarily because of their business model. Okay? Primarily because of their business model. We can pick any of these. Microsoft. Why is Microsoft on there? Microsoft, okay, was one of the first companies that actually made you pay for software. Because remember in the old days, when you got computers installed, they built the software kind of custom for your purpose. Microsoft said, hey, that's good, but we can get people to buy software. And of course, they got people to buy lots of software. GE, engine. Why is that up there? Well, they said, well, what if we could get people to buy airplanes without the engine? The engines are the most valuable part of the airplane. How about this? How about we keep control and ownership of the engines and we lease them to the airlines? And so what they started doing is selling planes, okay, in combination with, of course, Boeing and Airbus, without engines. But they would keep ownership of the engine, and they'd sell X hundred rated hours uptime. And they would maintain the engine. And you would just buy a service. So they converted this asset sale into a service sale with ongoing profits and whatnot. IKEA, Xerox. Now, what's interesting as well about business models is this, is that oftentimes you can have a technological advance, a technological innovation, but the value doesn't come out of this technological innovation until you add a business model component to it. So you have to combine a business model innovation with the technical innovation. You put those two things together to create value. Let's talk about Haloid for a second. 1959. Okay, 1959, they created a new way to make copies. Now, sometimes I feel old, but I don't feel that old in this room. But in your job or in work, how many people remember how we used to make copies? It used to be wet. Okay, it'd have to be wet to make a copy. So Haloid came up with a way to use static electricity to make copies. And they called it xerography, 1959. So they said, hey, GE, can you help us sell this? They said, no, get out. Okay, they went to IBM. Can you please help us sell this new technological innovation? They said, no, get out. They went to Kodak. Please, Mr. Eastman, can you help us? Get out. Okay, it was expensive. The process was expensive. So what they decided to do is to go alone. They decided to go it alone, and what they decided to do was to, instead of selling it, to lease it. Okay? So they went to their target market to lease this machine, this copy machine, and then they said, look, we're going to lease it to you for almost nothing, okay? And we're going to throw in all the paper, We're going to throw in all of the ink, and you don't have to pay us anything until you make your 2001 copy. We'll cover everything up to 2,000 copies. Okay. Now, why was that revolutionary? That was revolutionary because in the target market that they were going after, how many copies do you think that they would make on an average day? Anybody? 15 to 20. Remember, this is a wet and messy process. 15 to 20. And they said, we'll give you 2,000. That's crazy. These people were certifiable. These people were nuts. Okay, so what happened? What happened to Haloid? Okay? They sold a lot of these things. They grew at a compound rate of 41% over 12 years. They changed their name to Haloid Xerox. Then they dropped the Haloid altogether. Xerox Corporation became the de facto growth company of the 60s and 70s, based not on the technological innovation, but the combination of the technological innovation as well as the business model. Am I speaking too quickly? Okay, so what is this business model that we're talking about here? Here's some definitions. I would take time going through them, but I don't want to waste the time. I think we're going to make these slides available. Is that right, Helene? We are going to make these slides available so you'll be able to read them in depth, so you don't have to take pictures and whatnot, which probably won't come out anyway. So, but one thing keep an eye on the dates. This is 1998, 2001. 2000, it's an organization's core logic for creating value. Business model explains how to make money. That sounds pretty interesting. Representation of a firm's underlying core logic, strategic choices, creating and capturing value within the value network. Again, that sounds relatively interesting. Chesbrough, 2001. Basically the same thing. Something about a company's logic, something about how to make money, something about organizing activities to create and capture value, seems to be kind of triangulating to what a business model is. I think this is the last one on this. Yes, it is. Okay. So now, why is this important? Why is this business modeling important? How does it benefit the organization? Okay, how does it benefit the managers? Going to keep in mind, if it doesn't, anything to introduce an organization, if it doesn't really benefit the managers, even if it benefits the organization, managers aren't going to do it if it doesn't benefit them. So how does it benefit the managers and the organization? So one, understand ventures as a whole, how these elements fit together. Businesses do lots of things. The business model kind of can help you understand the whole. Create more value for customers. We always want to create more value for customers because the more value we create for customers, the more value we create for ourselves, being the owners of the company. And the more value we create for society as well. So creating value is very important for us. Okay? And of course, capturing that value in terms of growth and profits drives innovation. We talked about innovation being good, so that's a good thing. Optimizing production, maybe. That sounds good. Reduce failure rates. That's obviously a big one we want to do. Now, this is our friend from HBS, Margreta. Definition. Again, what is a business model? I like this. It's easy to remember. Stories that explain how enterprises work. Okay? If you have to remember a definition of business model, this is not a bad one. A story that explains how business models work. Okay? And what she says is that it forces managers to really understand the business and understand the processes and all of the parts, but how they work together. Okay, so we have an airplane here, lots and lots of parts, you know, with GE, of course, coming in with the engines, as we said. But all of these parts have to work in a certain way in order for the plane to fly. Okay, and business models are something like that. And how they emerge, how you create them, ultimately comes up from the value chain. The value chain is kind of the processes going from raw material to end user. And by analyzing the value chain, you can see potential opportunities, okay, to improve the process, to create something new, okay, to add value. Okay. So the function of a business model is this. Articulate a value proposition. We're going to go into these things a little bit more in depth. Market segment, define the structure of a value chain, position a firm within a value network, specify revenue generation, and it has something to do with strategy and competitive advantage. Now, the reason I say something to do is there's some debate on what the definitions of strategy, what the definitions of business model, and how they interact. All we can say is it has something to do with competitive strategy. I have an opinion on it, and maybe it'll come out later on. You take all of these things together, and now we see that the business model is where we should put our focus. Okay, it's all the great stuff about it, about creating value and running the organization as a whole and increasing operational efficiency and all of these sorts of things. Good for the environment, you know, what you can say, throw it all in. Business plan's what it is. So we went from the business plan 30-40, which is an optimistic, down to one page. 30-40 pages, now we go down to one. Okay? No wonder business planning is dead. If we can go from 40 pages to one, who doesn't want to do that? So here are a couple of frameworks. Again, you'll get the slides. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the point that I want you to get is that there are many different definitions of business models, and there are many different frameworks that you can use. Okay? Many different frameworks. This is from 2005. This is from 2012. Okay? Now, for our purpose, we want to understand business models. I want to try to synthesize this a little bit. This is the definition that I use on a daily basis. This is my go-to definition. How a venture makes money. If you leave with just that, how a venture makes money in terms of understanding of a business model, you'll be okay. How does the venture make money? Now, the question I have for you is when were the first business models used? When were the first business model, when do you think they were used? Now, while you're thinking about that, 1957 was the first time that the words business model, the phrase, was used in an academic paper. 1957. And in 1960, it was the first time that business models were used in the title, of an academic paper. So again, the question I asked was, when business models, when do they start? Go ahead.
Way before the Romans.
Way before the Romans. Okay, so we're jumping from 1957 to Roman time, 2,000 years, something like that. Okay.
The first time that we start exchanging value and bartering or what have you, I mean, as soon as you're trying to communicate and exchange value, that's when business models start to happen.
Good. Good. Andy, that's plant.
Can you please repeat that because we are live streaming and people wonder what we said.
Aha, okay. This is a colleague of mine, Andy Carr, and what he said was that way before now, in the Roman times, is when the first business models were used, when people started exchanging goods. Okay? And that answer happens to be correct. It happens to be whenever organizations were created in a way, with the purpose to create value, there were business models. While they might not have been called business models until maybe 1957 or 1960 or now, they still were business models. So business models are not new. They didn't just drop off the truck. They just didn't come out of a book in 2004 or 2009 or 2010. They weren't created by a person named Alexander. Here's a little thought experiment. To what extent can the success of the following ventures be attributed to excellence? Okay. Again, my slides are really basic. Okay. When you see a slide that's a little bit more basic, you need to thank another colleague of mine, Greg, because I borrowed his slides for a lot of this stuff. Okay, my slides are really, really basic, but this one's a little bit more elaborate. Okay, so McDonald's, Ryanair, Walmart. Are these examples of success due to product excellence? Or is there something else going on here? Something else. The business model canvas, which we really haven't discussed yet, which is the focus of our presentation today, and the lean methodology has crowded out most deep thinking in new venture creation. That's my point. My point is that in the mid-2000s, when the lean methodology as well as the business model canvas hit the scene, okay, it's forced out, they've become so popular, so predominant, that they forced out any other thinking on business models and business model creation and business model innovation, as well as the startup process. Okay? And you can't talk about business models without talking about the canvas. One of the things I didn't say in my introduction is that I used to mentor and take student teams to compete all around the world in business plan competitions. Those people who know me know that that's the case, and also that we've had great success. We've won international competitions from San Diego to Sao Paulo, in fact. From Brussels to San Francisco. We don't go in those competitions anymore. Why? Because business plan competitions have basically been disrupted out of business. Because they don't have them really anymore. Because why? We've gone from 30 to 40 pages to 1. Some places have tried to have business model competitions. Okay? Haven't really seen any successful ones yet. Well, we've been disrupted out of business. I used to teach a business plan course, but I actually switched it 10 years ago, and actually Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship, as well as KTH, we became actually one of the first schools to teach a graduate course in business model innovation about 10 years ago. I'm relatively proud about that. But we stopped teaching business planning and moved to business models. So they've been disrupted out of the education as well. So this is Alexander Osterwalder. There he is on the left. This is his definition of business model. The rationale, how an organization creates and delivers and captures value. It's a perfectly fine definition. It's just like the definitions that we had before, just a little bit more succinct. He is a journalist by background, and so he's really good at words and design. Okay. So in 2004, this is his dissertation, The Business Model Ontology, Proposition for Design Science Approach, at EFPL in Lausanne, Switzerland. This is the root of everything in terms of the business model canvas. What's interesting about this, Eve is his doctoral supervisor. What's interesting about this wasn't in the business department. This was in the information services, the MIS department. And when he was talking about businesses, for the most part, he was talking about e-businesses and e-commerce. And you can see a lot of that embedded in the business model canvas, as well as the lean startup methodology. Now, what is it? This is from his dissertation. This is page 9 from his dissertation. One of the only people, of course, that have read the dissertation. Everyone's read the book. No one's read the dissertation. What I wanted to show you here is that he actually went through and did some rigorous academic work. All of these researchers on the left, these are the same people that I just showed you their definition and their work on business modeling. So he did rigorous work in the dissertation. Again, this is after he created the model. He again did rigorous work looking and analyzing the model vis-a-vis the research on business modeling at the particular time. So he really did that in the dissertation. Okay? But I want to put this in context here. This is a quote from page 9. The dissertation does not aim at the following: modeling the whole enterprise. The dissertation focuses on business model, i.e. the flow of how enterprises earn money. It does not aim to describe the entire enterprise. Okay? So now start thinking about, how is the business model canvas used today? Next, the dissertation does not aim at the following: modeling or explaining business model success. The business model canvas is not about describing or explaining business model success. Okay? Success in business model relates not only to its design, but the implementation, which is not part of the dissertation. And we've been using the business model canvas because we think it's about business success. We think it's about the entire enterprise, the entire startup. Okay? You've been hoodwinked. You've been lied to. It's not true. Now, yes, he's made some changes and tried to catch up, and we can talk about that stuff in questions and answers, but this is the root of everything. This is from his research. Now, what's interesting about this is that these are the 9 elements, and we'll talk about what 9 elements are, but look at the relationships here. The relationships. Okay. Now, look at this really closely. I'm going to switch slides in a second, but look at this. Okay, so this comes out of the research. When methodology is repacked, it's oversimplified. When we're trying to make something for the mass market, when we're trying to make something to be consumed, when we're trying to make some money, when we're trying to sell out, we take the guts out of it to make it really easy. We make it simple for simpletons. This is the business model canvas. Okay? You can see this underneath, but this is the canvas. This is the canvas. Now, what's interesting about this is eating your own dog food. How many people know the expression eating your own dog food? Okay, so eating your own dog food is an expression by a guy named Guy Kawasaki. Guy Kawasaki was one of the first Apple evangelists. Basically hire a guy to be a cheerleader for the brand. He's very successful doing it. And he's a smart guy. He can turn a phrase really well. And he's still out there doing that sort of thing. But this eating your own dog food is basically walking the walk. If you're going to advocate something, then you should do it too. If you're going to advocate something, you should do it too. So what did he do with the business model canvas and the book? So this is the book, Business Model Generation. It came after the dissertation in about 2010. Okay? What he did was he solicited help from a community he had developed to talk about business models. He said, hey, I'm writing a book. You can be a co-author. Send me $500 and I'll put your name in the book. And so people said, hey, I want to be in this book. Here's $500. So he collected this money from almost 500 people. Okay, and what did he use the money for? Publish the book. Okay, published the book. Self-published the book. Now, because of the buzz and the success of the book, then Wiley purchased the rights and then started doing it in a different way. But business model innovation. Okay. I think that was smart. I think that was cool as well. So these are the 9 building blocks at a glance. Customer segment, value proposition, channels, customer relationships, revenue streams, key resources, key activities, key partnerships, and cost structure. It sounds really good. We have on the right side customers, we have on the left side infrastructure, we have on the bottom the financial viability, and in the middle we have the offer. All on one sheet of paper, all so we can see. Looks really nice, especially from a design perspective, and it's only on one piece of paper. Okay? Value on one side, efficiency on the other, emotion on one side, logic on the other. This stuff sounds too good to be true. And what did your mother tell you about things that sound too good to be true? Okay, so here are a few shortcomings. Okay? Mixed level of abstraction. So the right side is talking about customers, left side is talking about a different level of analysis. So that's one issue. There's no interaction, we talked about that before, in the canvas itself. There's no time element. What do you do first? How does time affect what you're doing? There's no dynamic action happening. It's just a static picture for the most part. Okay? And here, customer development and product fit. Okay? We talk about entrepreneurship. Okay? We talk about solving a problem. Okay? And the solution to the problem are the products and services that you create. So an entrepreneur is looking for a problem, and then the products and services that he create are the solution to the problem. That's a key foundation of entrepreneurship. Okay? So we're going to come back to that in a second. Last one here. This is interesting. He doesn't talk about startups. This research was not about startups. It was about large firms. It wasn't about startups. What do we use the business model canvas for? Startups. Okay, so what happened? So go back to here. No, there was no entrepreneurial question here and solution, no product market fit. So what happens is a smart guy looks at the canvas and said, hey, this is pretty good. His name is Ash. He said, hey, this is pretty good, but you know, for startups, it's not any good. So I want to change it so we really focus on the problem, okay, and the solution. And we focus on competitive advantage and things that startups that are ultimately successful are interested in. That's what we're going to do. So he came up with a modified version called the Lean Canvas that lots of people have migrated to. Lots of schools have migrated to. Lots of faculty have migrated to. Okay. And this was again in 2012 or so. And so what happened? Alexander goes, oops, I forgot. Okay. Now, while he's thinking about this, there's another guy, Steve Blank, an entrepreneur, who starts lecturing at Stanford because that's what they do. They're in the valley. They get these guys to come and lecture. He's a pretty good talker. He's a pretty good thinker. He starts getting some traction. So he starts working on the same kind of issues that Osterwalder is focusing in, but he's focusing on the customer aspect. And they come in contact with each other and start working together. So Alexander says, okay, I got to come up with some kind of product market fit thing. So he comes up with another canvas, customer value canvas. So now you have the business model canvas, and then you have to do another canvas before you can actually do the business model canvas, is you have to do a value proposition canvas, because this is where the product market fit is done. And then once you do that, then you can do the rest of the stuff. Because he forgot, because it wasn't designed to do what people are using it for. Once the Lean Canvas came out, it kind of opened the floodgates. People said, hey, you know, this is pretty good, but we can modify it for our purposes. Okay, so here's third-party funded models where there's a donor and a mission as opposed to a product. Triple bottom line, social activities. Okay, so you add down here some social value that you have to create. Okay, because remember, value proposition is not financial value necessarily, it's about value in a broad sense. So certainly it could work for nonprofit and social organizations as well. Here's a value model canvas, business model innovation canvas, social business model canvas, social enterprise canvas. You know, it's an industry making these things. It really is. So I know what you're going to say. You know what you're thinking. The business model canvas is a tool, yes, but it's a tool so we can all speak a common language. It's great so we can all speak a common language. Esperanto is a common language too. I don't see you speaking it. So, business modeling. What's next? Okay. What's next? I want to talk next about lean startup and how business models interact with lean startup. I have no idea what time it is. I have no idea where we are, but I can tell you this. So we're going to take, how long? Take a break now for?
Let's say 50 minutes, but
50?
I'm sure it will be 20 minutes until you're
50,
back.
will you bring the folks back in?
Yeah.
I don't have to do that.
No.
No, okay.
I do it.
Good.
See you in 50 minutes. thought that you just could say
Okay. Let's get going. If my voice sounds a little bit funny in this second half, is because I burned my tongue on the Wiener bread that was out there. It was really hot. Anybody have that? It was good, but it was hot. I know, so it's like, okay. So I want to start this second part. And again, I may go a little bit quicker, speaking-wise, because I want to try to get some questions in, if possible. So the business model canvas is just part of a three-element movement. We call this movement the lean startup movement. And it's made up of the business model canvas, customer development, and agile engineering. These are the three guys: Osterwalder, Steve Blank, and Eric Ries. So we've completed the business model canvas aspect. I want to talk briefly about customer development. Now remember, customer development is what Steve Blank was doing at the same time as Osterwalder was finishing up the business model canvas book in particular. And so it's a very interesting and very appealing thing, is that when we're starting a business, all of the ideas that we have, including the business model itself, is an assumption. We assume that there's a market. We assume that people are going to like our product. We assume that they're willing to pay whatever kroner. We assume that they want it delivered. Why don't we make hypotheses instead and then test the hypotheses? So instead of having an assumption about the price customers are willing to pay, in the store, we assume. We make all of these assumptions. And so what this idea is that instead of making assumptions, a hypothesis, we come up with an experiment, and we test so we know what the value, or excuse me, what value that they're willing to pay for and what price they're willing to pay. And so we validate the hypothesis, or we invalidate the hypothesis, or we modify the hypothesis. And this is the idea. So imagine the canvas, okay, these 9 blocks. We're saying this is our customer segment, our assumption. Our assumption is that it's women 18 to 35. But we don't know that. This is what we assume. Now, if we were a regular startup, we would try to sell in channels that we could reach women 18 to 35. In the startup methodology, lean startup methodology, instead of doing that, we actually set up some experiments and test, and we find out if that's true. And let's say we set up a hypothesis and it turns out that it's not true. Women 18 to 35 are not interested in our product or service. It's women who are 40 or over. Okay? We do that and we get validation for that. Okay? Now just think about potentially how powerful this is. If you're going to pitch to some investors, who's your target market? And you say, well, we think our target market is women 18 to 35. Okay. Versus, we know our target market is 40 plus. And they say, how do you know? Because we did these tests, and the tests demonstrated that the women 40 and over were willing to pay for the value proposition that we had at that particular price. It's a much more powerful pitch. Much more powerful pitch. Okay, so that's what that is. Agile engineering, Eric Ries, again, at the same time, this 2010, 2011, 2012 period, comes out with a book called Lean Startup. Good book. It's a biographical book. We don't really know how much of it's true, but it's based upon his experience, and it's based on this idea of lean manufacturing. Okay? But it applied a little bit differently, mostly to software development. And we know that, well, if you ask anybody, they would say, we're doing this new methodology called Lean Startup based on this book. And we know that it comes from Henry Ford in 1906. Henry Ford, 1906. Okay? So if you want to call that new, then this is new. But it has some cool things. Minimum viable product, MVP. Okay, that's a disturbing thing for me, coming from the US and being a baseball fan. I said, MVP? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Minimal viable product, for those of you who don't know, is you come up with a product that doesn't necessarily have all the features in it, but it has good enough features in it, and you release it, and you get people to buy it and see if they like it, and you get the feedback, and then you incorporate the feedback into the next version. Okay, continuous deployment. Okay, it's really hard to do that with a car. Okay, but maybe software you can release, and then you continue to make updates almost on a daily basis. Now think about this. You're doing updates almost on a daily basis. Okay, just think, what does this do to your application? But anyway, that's enough. You know, we're not supposed to talk about that. Split testing. Okay, is A/B testing. Pretty cool stuff, actually, when you're talking about with websites and that sort of stuff, or even software. We come out with this feature set, and this feature set, and we see which one works better. And then if they like feature set A, we drop feature set B, because it's better. And then we come up with a feature set C, and then we test C against A, and maybe C is better, or maybe A is better. You know, so you test to see what's better. No assumptions, we test, we use numbers. Actionable metrics. If we have numbers, okay, everything will be saved. If we have the numbers. Pivot. Okay, pivot is making some sort of change. You keep one foot or one part in the history, rooted in the past, and then you make changes to the business model. You know, go here, here. I mean, how many people know what business YouTube? When YouTube started, what business was it in? Online dating. Online dating. YouTube's online dating site. Okay, Groupon, political action. PayPal, to send money to people with Palm Pilots. You wonder why they had to pivot. That, you know. Anyway, so pivot is changing. Pivot is another word from realizing you made a mistake and going a different direction. Okay? Makes sense to me. Build, learn, measure. You can figure out what that is. You build something, measure, see if it works. You learn from feedback, you incorporate changes, and move on. So that's what agile engineering is. And you put those three things together, business model canvas, customer development, and agile engineering, and you have the lean startup methodology. Now, here are some issues. Okay, here are some issues. As we said before, when methodology is repackaged, it is oversimplified, making simple solutions for simple tons. Remember? Okay. Metric bias. As long as we have numbers, we're cool. Numbers, 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 numbers. Drive to be minimal. We're trying to reduce, so no waste, no waste. This is one of the reasons why I was totally against the re-engineering. You know, when, what's his name? Hammer. For those of you that remember, those of you who have to be 50 plus years old. But Hammer in the 80s came up with this re-engineering of the corporation. It was huge, 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 huge. Made a lot of money consulting. But it was all about cutting. You know, cutting. Didn't say what happens when you get to zero. You know, you can't cut your way to growth. Okay, you can't cut your way to value creation. You can increase profitability to a certain extent, but you can't grow that way. And the same sort of thing. Let me just skip ahead here. Is that innovation, value creation, entrepreneurship is a messy process. Creativity is a messy process. There's lots of waste. Okay, so when you reduce waste, if you focus on cutting and reducing waste and whatnot, you have to impact the creativity and all the trying and testing and that sort of thing. That's a problem. That's a problem. Asking the wrong questions, testing the wrong things. Okay? They don't talk about these things. Okay? And these are just a few of the issues related to problems with the startup methodology. Okay, again, this is a quote, but the business model is not a guarantee for success, as it has to be implemented and managed. Okay, the business model is something else than a business company process. Okay, so he's telling you up front, okay, but no one read the dissertation. Okay, because that's hard. Okay, it's cheaper to download the book or buy it. Okay, so we went from the business plan to, and business plan competitions, as I talked about before, to 13 slide deck. Okay, they had tried to have pitch competitions where you get 10 or 15 slides and you pitch and you see if you would get money or not. They had didn't last. No, it didn't last at all. To 1 page. So we go to 30 pages to a slide deck, now to 1 page. Simplification. Okay, who wouldn't want to go from 30 pages to 1 if you could do it? So I don't begrudge people for trying to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But these are tools. Business model canvas, methodology, these are tools to use, just like a hammer, screwdriver. These are excellent tools, okay, for the right purpose. Okay? The right tool for the right job. Because remember, okay, a fool with a tool is still a fool. And the oversimplification of these tools have opened the floodgates to so many fools trying to take advantage of these tools to start up. There's no wonder the startup rate, the failure rate is so great. Okay. Oh, failure rate is 90%. First of all, don't believe that. But anyway, if you're going to believe, the startup rate is, the failure rate is 90%. But of course, these people are idiots. They're doing it because it's 1 page. They've never read 30 pages, so the fact that you can do it in 1 makes sense to them. Now, I want to show that this is the business models, business model innovation is important. I mean, look at this here. The top one is that in the aviation business, those that innovated in business models in aviation have 55% of the market. In retail, 75% of the market. Of the new entrants in the Fortune 500, okay, 40% of them are entering because of the business model, the innovation, not the product or service. We talked about that before, the Walmarts, the McDonald's. So business models are important. The business model canvas, potentially less so. Lean startup, potentially less so. Agile engineering, potentially less so. So what's next? This comes out of Steve Blank. Now, we've been focusing a lot on the left side, okay? What Steve Blank says is that the startup, okay, is a phase. It's a phase where an organization is seeking a profitable and scalable business model. And then once you have that, the startup phase is over and you go into the scaling phase. I think that that's reasonable. So let's say the left side is this searching for a business model, and then you have this transition where you actually have to implement. Maybe we need to spend more time on how do you do this transition. Maybe we need to spend time researching, thinking, writing, practicing the transition and moving to the company in this execution side of the market. Remember what Osterwalder himself said. The business model and the campus has nothing to do with success because you have to implement things. So then let's focus on the implementation of the business model. How do you do that? How do you get the team ready to run? How do you get your organization ready to run? Okay, so now we have a scalable and viable business model. Okay, do you just give it to them and say, okay? That's not enough. How do you get them to absorb it? How do you get them to buy it? How do you get them to have it deep inside their soul? How do you get them to run? Maybe we can research that a little bit. Anybody interested in that? Now, not limitations of the business model canvas. I need to go a little quicker here. So I'm going to put these all out. Okay. Now, this is kind of weird. Not limitations of business model canvas. These 12 things are what people use to critique and criticize the business model canvas. Okay? Now, I kind of have been doing that the whole time, but I'm going to stick up for it right now. Competition, strategy, industry, blah, 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 blah. Okay? All of these things are not valid critiques. Okay? They're not valid critiques. A hammer is to hammer things. Okay? Hammer is to hammer things. You don't use it to paint. Okay? The canvas is not about competition. Competition is outside of the canvas. Now, it's going to have an impact. You're going to have to make changes and tweaks because of competition. Okay? But it's not about that. Okay? It's not about that. So these things are critiquing the canvas, and it's not a valid critique. These things are important. These things are valid. We need to know these things. Now think about it. If these things kind of fit. Remember the picture I showed you before? We kind of had on one side, we had the business model. On the other side, we had kind of the implementation side. You think about this. These things are on the implementation side. Okay. For or against? Maybe we've gone too far. Maybe we need to rethink this. Maybe those 12 things are important. Maybe one page isn't enough. Maybe we need to implement, learn how to implement. Maybe we need to know about how to market, how to enter a market. Maybe we need to know about how to mitigate risk. Maybe we need to know which market is going to be our primary, secondary, and tertiary, and why. Maybe we need to know something about our team. Maybe we need to know about risk mitigation. All those things are important. Maybe we need a business plan. Maybe we do. So maybe we need to go back a little bit. So this whole lean startup methodology, the business model canvas, agile, and customer development, okay, it's neither right nor wrong. It's neither good nor bad. Okay? It's just not the way. Okay? It is a way. It's not the way. It's a way. Gresham's law. Anybody remember this from economics? Okay, probably not. I'll tell you what it is. It's bad money drives out good money. Bad money drives out good money. I think this is kind of what's happened. I mean, the canvas is in the lean startup is so sweet. It's so easy. It's so I just love it so much that, you know, it's forced out more serious things, more things that are more complex, things that are more real. To develop the cult of lean startup. And there is a cult. Some of you might be in it, okay? Hopefully this is the start of your extraction. Okay? Hopefully. But there's someone that has something interesting to say about the cult. And I will give this person the last word. We cannot afford to have our success breed a new pseudoscience around pivot, MVP, and the like. And I would include Canvas and all of those sorts of things there. This was the fate of scientific management, and in the end, I believe, set back its cause by decades. The cult of lean method startup. And who do you think said it? It's actually in the book. He was trying to inoculate himself against this critique. So, in conclusion, hate and love. Let's see if we can do this. The persuaders. It's coming. Here it goes. There's a thin line between love and hate. Sometimes I hate the business model canvas, the lean startup methodology, and other times I love it because it's so cool in many respects. Okay? Thank you.
I think there will be a lot of questions, but I will start by answering one. The slides will be on our website either tonight or latest tomorrow, so you will find it there. If you don't, please send me an email, I will guide you. Okay, questions? Wave your hands. Yes, we take that one first.
Thank you, Terrence, for a really interesting, thought-provoking presentation. You were mentioning the right tool for the right purpose. What do you think about the idea of the more uncertainty you have in a business? When you're starting out, everything is unknown. You don't know who the customer is going to be, you don't know how you're going to price the product, how you're going to reach the customer, etc., etc. Don't you think that in those situations, having a quick iterative tool is beneficial rather than doing a big business plan? And then when you're moving more past that, past problem solution fit, and you are gaining more certainty about what's going on, you can delve more into creating a business plan that is showing the resources needed in order to execute on this plan. So they're both needed, but in different situations. So, I don't know.
It's a good question. I could easily say, yes, I agree. Makes sense. Makes sense. But I would say this. I would say that I could argue that in order to, even in the early phase, in order to determine whether or not we're going to enter this particular market, you want to pick this particular target market, we need to understand some things that a more thorough description or analysis that might be in a business plan could bring. And I think that there's an iterative process that goes from, see, you can go iterative from light to light analysis, so you're going from kind of napkin to napkin, okay? Or you could go from napkin to outline to business plan, because if you don't, okay, you may jump too early at some things that with a little bit more thorough analysis you wouldn't have done. So I think that both of them are important, but I think if you're really limited in resources, really limited in time, then maybe doing your way might work.
Can I just follow up, because it's just
Yeah, I'm just seeing as a risk if you know the idea of paralysis through analysis, and you end up within your four walls and you're writing your business plan and you're doing your 5-year projections in Excel down to the third decimal point, and the more you're doing that, the more confident you get at your own assumptions. But the risk here is that you're starting to build one assumption on top of another assumption on top of another assumption, never actually going out and testing for it, and what you end up with is some kind of a reality distortion bubble, and it's a situation of bias that actually can harm your business early stage. So this is always the balance, right, between actually doing your analysis and going out and testing for it. So this is the divergent, convergent idea of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Executing.
I mean, a couple of things. I think that first, it is a balance. I think also, as you said, I mean, it's not doing testing. It's doing testing and analysis as opposed to one or the other. And yes, there's paralysis of analysis. There's also running around with a chicken, like a chicken with its head cut off. So there's those sorts of things that happen. And it's balance. It's about balance.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Andy. Two little comments I'd like to get your thoughts on.
Sure.
The first one, I think you talked a lot about what the business canvas and model isn't about. And being a serial entrepreneur myself, I think what you do, how you do it, and why you do it are really important things. So you can't really pivot in any direction. And even customers can't tell you what you need to do, because it's the 20th time you go back to the customer and say, you really need to do this, and they get it, that you've actually accomplished something more substantial than a simpler thing that you could get right sort of in the first couple of attempts. And then I like the Steve Blank picture you showed of sort of the startup being a temporary organization searching a repeatable business model. I only think that the troglodytes that you have running the company in the right half of the company, of the picture, with AI, will be replaced by computers, and we will do the human thing, which is finding these new business models. But,
I think that makes sense. I mean, I think that the repeatable things, why not give those things to computers and allow, and robots and those sorts of things, to allow the things that people do best, the thinking aspect, the creative aspect, to do that. I mean, I think that's what, in any organization, you need to try to get your people to do what they do best, and everything else you need to give to other people, whether it's outsourcing or what. You outsource it to people who do that best. So then you build a network as an organization where everyone's focused on doing what they do best, and the value of the network, multiplies. So I think that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Hi. Again, thank you for a great talk.
You're welcome.
You said that you were also an investor.
Yeah.
And obviously you have refused a couple of companies when they have pitched for you. That is at least my guess. What are you looking for? I mean, what is it that actually triggers you to actually do invest in something? What is it that persuades you that where people have done something right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy or hard to think about what it is. I mean, there's a well-defined problem. The company has a solution to that problem. Okay, they have done some research, some testing, so they know that this market does exist. They know that the customer group, the customer segment, is willing to pay for that value proposition that they're offering, and that they have a team, okay, that can actually deliver what they say they're going to deliver. I think that's the starting, of course there are different stages, that might be an early stage, it might be subsequent stages of investment, but I think as an early investment, that's what you're looking for. And as a seed investment, you're looking for a really cool problem and a seed of a solution. But that's the thing, I mean, problem, solution, okay, at a place, business is not really tough in that there's a problem, there's a solution, and me as the entrepreneur provides a solution at a price that the customer is willing to pay, and that price is enough to cover my costs and leave a little extra. Remember what we said about simple things, though.
This is Magdi. We've been talking about either business model is dead or like business plan is dead. I've learned business model from you and Greg. I mean, the course you briefly talked about, that's where I've learned business model. But I have to say, I mean, a follow-up comment on the previous question. In my current startup, when we actually went out to raise money, a couple of millions of dollars, when we managed to raise this money, we didn't do it by either of them, actually. Business plan didn't work for us, and business model didn't work for us. Investors were actually after the the one thing you previously mentioned in one slide, the 13-page
Slide deck.
Yeah, that's what they all ask for. And when we well prepared this and we send it out, it became much easier for them to understand what we're doing, the team, everything. So, I mean, practically speaking, from my own experience in this startup, the business model and business plan didn't help us at all pitching the idea, basically.
Two things. First, you often hear, is it better to have an A product and a B team, or B product and an A team? Okay? And the answer, it's better to have a B product and an A team. And why is that? Because the product is going to change almost immediately, and you need a team that's good enough to recognize that and make the adaptation. So you recognize the fact that the plan didn't work, the business model, and your team was strong enough to adapt to do what did work. Okay? So that's a really good thing. Also, there's a thing, and I throw academic institutional theory, and it's something that's called coercive isomorphism. Okay? Coercive isomorphism. And what it means is that organizations copy shapes of other organizations or copy processes of other organizations because they're kind of forced to. Okay? And I would argue that part of the reason that the Canvas and slide decks and all of these things are used by VCs is this thing. They don't believe that these are the best necessarily, but if we don't we have to use it because our competitors are using it. And we'll look stupid if we don't do that. Okay? Every business plan that you ever see has Porter's 5 forces in it. Okay? Why? Okay? Not the ones that come out of my students, but mostly 5 forces are in there. Why? Because if someone sees a business plan and there's no 5 forces in that, they're going to call you on it. Okay? So, why do people do things? I don't want to get into the whole venture capital business because venture capital, I won't say it's a scam. I would never say that the venture capital business is a scam because I'd have to have really, really good reason and really, really good evidence to say that the venture capital business is a scam. So I would never say that. But what I would say, we don't really have time to say right now.
Yes, up here.
I can't see.
Thank you for a good presentation. I'm going to stand up so you can see me. Thank you
the
for a
lights.
good presentation.
No, there you go.
I'm very curious. One thing you said about innovations or more complex stuff. I would argue that we have an innovation deficit in the Western world today that is related to the fact that we don't diffuse innovations into our societies. And I would like to know if you think that part of this problem could perhaps be what you just said, that the one-pager is crowding out, and how would you say it's crowding out more complex stuff from startups, basically?
Well, it's crowding out for the reason that it's so popular that people gravitate to use it. Okay, not necessarily because of this coercive isomorphism, but mimetic isomorphism. And mimetic isomorphism is people try to imitate things, okay, for other reasons. It's just so easy to do, and thinking hard and thinking deeply is difficult. And so even smart people or people that might have something, okay, are going to go with the flow. They're going to go with what everyone else is doing. They don't know. They're going to ask someone, hey, I have this thing I'm interested in, and what are you going to do? I had a student yesterday who came up to me during the break and showed me this business model canvas for I won't say what the business is, but a business model canvas. And he said he's having difficulty making it work. And I'm saying, well, why did you do a business model canvas? He said somebody told him to. Not because it's going to add value, not because it's going to further his business, but he did it because someone told him to. And he's trying to, he's trying to force things in boxes that shouldn't be in a box. So I think that that simpletons as well as smart people have gravitated to a tool that is very, very ubiquitous. And as a result, we get some of the things that you suggest, that maybe we don't have as much innovation, okay? Maybe we don't have as much innovation because the innovations don't get funded, they don't get out because people are using the wrong tool for the wrong purpose. There's a question over here.
Thank you. I want to respond shortly to the previous question and turn it into a question also, a next question. Because I think it also has to do with the conflict between recognizing real problems and finding solutions and innovations and validation from the market. Because there's also another assumption, maybe a little bit on a higher level, and that is that whatever the customer chooses to do is right. Yeah, so if I say, like, I have this really clean tech car, then as a startup I might run away from this value proposition if people don't buy it and choose like a more, well, like a dirtier option. Like the sales of Volkswagen last year were higher than ever. So it's like the market feedback doesn't always correspond to your problem, your solution to a real problem. So the dissemination of an innovation into society also relies on the willingness of customers to be responsible and innovative consumers.
And the question is,
yeah, how to fix this? Like, how can you convince like consumers to disseminate like this innovation with you as through their consuming behavior, basically?
How can you get customers to disseminate the innovation with you? Well, I mean, it's a complex question, but I'll give you a relatively short and easy answer. Especially nowadays, because of information technology and also the social movement towards co-creation and co-production and crowdsourcing and those sorts of things, using a tactic or a strategy like co-creation is one way in which you can not only get your customer to join in the creation of the product, but when a customer joins in the creation of the product, he or she becomes more committed and will trust you more. And this is a way that they could be used to help spread the word as well as you build a community around your product or service. So that's an easy answer, but that does answer the question. Yes?
Hi.
I'm sorry, I can't even see where you are.
I'm
Wave a
here.
hand. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. I hope you will have a great advice. If you feel a bit of lost here, how to do it and when to choose which tool, since what I understand is that the tricky part is that you can have benefit with different methods and tools. It's just like more tricky to know how to do it, like when to choose the right tool. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. This seminar is free, so you're not going to get a great answer. You're only going to get a good answer. The great answer you have to pay for, and you saw my contact information. Sure. It's a thin line, yeah. There are lots of tools out there. Okay, some of them are good, some of them aren't good. It really is challenging. I mean, how do you know when to use a hammer? It's the nature of the problem and experience. The nature of the problem and experience. Also, we don't have time to gain experience oftentimes. And so when we need to gain experience, and we have a short period of time, how do we do that? Well, one way we do that is by reading books of the experience of others, or trying to experience through trying to put together a team where they have other life experiences. So that's what I would suggest. I mean, I would suggest that, you know, it's the nature of the problem plus your experience, okay? And if you're, you know, build a team that has experience, build a team that is diverse, build a team that can look at problems and develop solutions from different angles, whether it be ethnic or gender or subject or educational or whatever sort of diversity you can build in your team. There are substantial advantages to that, especially in the problem-solving area. So I hope that's a good answer.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for a very good presentation.
You're very welcome.
My question is about, because I'm curious about if you can give an example of how to test an hypothesis to get the right target group for customers.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, we talked about that example where we thought our product and service was for 18 to 35-year-olds, and it turned out to be 40-year-olds. I mean, get a group of women of various ages and try to sell them the product, and try to sell them on the fact that your value proposition is worth it for the price you're trying to pay. And by going through that exercise, okay, you'll find out if it works or not. I mean, so that's a relatively easy one. The thing about it is, you just can't ask. I have students who say, I have a good idea. And I say, how do you know it's a good idea? Okay, because I asked them. I said, great. What did you ask them? And they asked them, if you could buy a product, okay, that was safe for the environment, low priced, made you a lot of money, would you be interested in that? You know, and then they're surprised that 100% of the people didn't say yes. So, you know, so there are ways that you need to do, practiced ways in which you need to organize experiments and ask questions, and you have to ask them in the right sort of way in order for the data to be valid. But I think that one is relatively easy. Value propositions, different segment groups, see if they're willing actually to buy. And thinking about buying is not enough. They actually have to buy. Good. Thanks again.
I want to say that it took 16 years for us to invite Terrence again, but that's not why, because we didn't want him. He was too busy. That's why. We like dissemination of knowledge very much, so we support UNICEF's work through School in a Box. We also like recycling, so here is a bowl from Torstensson Art for the Easter candies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good. Thank you.